teams of days gone by. The Browns of today will never say die. They'll win it with offense, they'll win it with D. And Super Bowl bound is what we will be.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Joey.
And we are the hosts of Next Year Is Now, a Cleveland Browns fan podcast by fans for fans.
Rally back and tie the game, and we're going to go to overtime. Listen to Cleveland Stadium.
Here come the Browns, the number one Browns, the pride of Cleveland, Cleveland Browns. Here come the Browns.
Next Year's Now is brought to you by the Moorhead clan. Visit us at nextyearsnow.podbean.com. Feel free to leave your comments and ideas. We love to engage with fellow fans. Just remember to keep it respectful, as this is a family enterprise.
Well, welcome back for another week of Next Year Is Now. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
That's good. We are recording on a Wednesday, which is really ideal because it's before all of the games for the NFL week begin, and there's a lot going on. So we're going to jump into the news, and then we're going to break some fun stuff down this week as we head into really the last fourth of the season. I can't believe we're already 3/4 of the way through. I'm sad because it means we're almost to that time of year where we're stuck waiting again. Dang, it goes too fast. I hate it. All right, well, the news this week, Mike McCarthy was fired as head coach of the Packers. Obvious connection with the Browns front office on that one. Your thoughts on Mike McCarthy? We will talk about coaches later.
I mean, I think he would be a fine choice to have as head coach if it comes to that. You know, connections are key.
Yeah, it takes two to tango. I'm not entirely sure that Mike McCarthy was the entire problem in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers hasn't really done himself any favors. A lot of people are coming out and starting to say, maybe Rodgers is part of the problem. Great quarterback, a little quirky though, and sometimes it's like we've seen with the Browns. When you have dysfunction and you don't have everybody on the same page, team falls apart, disintegrates, blows up, whatever. And we're seeing now what it can be like when everyone is on the same page. Mike McCarthy is, up until a couple years ago, was a revered head coach in the league. One of the young, steady, just solid guys that he could pick where he wants to coach. And now they've let him go. He will work somewhere next year. I won't be surprised at all if it's in Cleveland. But again, we're going to talk about that. He's going to be a hot name, and he will certainly be connected in one way or another with our search. Also in the news, Denzel Ward's in concussion protocol. This guy's a baller, and I don't want to downplay this as being typical sissy protocol. I feel like Denzel would have been out there if there was even a shred of doubt that it was something else. You know what I mean? In fact, they thought it was a shoulder injury, and when he came off, they noticed that things just weren't quite right with Denzel, and they realized he had his bell rung. So
yeah, I don't really think it's actually up to Ward, so I think you could call this sissy protocol, because I'm sure if he did want to play, he would have. But, if they see that there is something wrong with him, if he is a little bit banged up, they're not going to let him play.
Yeah, they'll take the conservative approach. I'm sure you're right about that. I'm still going to veer away from that because I really think this guy he's tough, and we'll see. If it's not that, he'll be back. If it is that, it'll take a week or 2 or 3. Who knows? Everybody heals differently in that way. Speaking of injuries, Larry Ogunjobi also is injured. He's got a bicep injury. We don't really know the extent of it. We do know that Ogunjobi seems to be a quick healer, and he seems to think he's going to be fine. That's a great thing.
Fine by me.
And what do you have?
Well, I have a correction from last week when I said that the Browns haven't won 3 games since 1949. I don't know what the deal was with that guy who said that, but it is my fault for saying it as well on the show. So last time was actually 2014, and I've been trying to find out if there is some record 3 consecutive away games, but the only thing that keeps coming up is the same website with the same question as before. And my other piece of news is Terrence Money Mitchell returned from injury reserve this week, so that will be an improvement to our defense.
That's wonderful. I couldn't be happier about that. Now we're going to move into the good, the bad, and the ugly segment, talking about last week's game against the Texans. So, Joey, what did you think was good about last week?
Well, the defense only allowed 1 touchdown, crazy as it may sound, with
29
all
points,
the points
right?
that they had.
Unbelievable. 1 touchdown from the D. Garrett had 1.5 sacks in this game. That tied him with J.J. Watt for the season, who did not get a sack against Baker Mayfield. Of course, these guys are still 3.5 or so behind Aaron Donald for the league lead. And it's what's amazing about Aaron Donald is he's not doing that as a defensive end. He does that as a defensive tackle who's about 6 foot tall. Unbelievable that guy just mashes the middle and they can't be stopped. It's unreal. Of course, he's next to, Ndamukong Suh, and, that's a devastating team they've got there. Baker, good resolve. 24 out of 30 for over 350 yards and a touchdown after his 3 interceptions. This all occurred in the second half. 350 yards in the second half, 24 out of 30. Goes to show he's not going to let a bad game get him down, a bad play get him down. He bounces right back, and guys believe in him. So I like that.
Something else that was good was Landry was definitely much more involved this week than last week. He had plenty of catches and over 100 yards receiving.
Yeah, and I don't think that's totally necessary for him every week. I like it as well, though, because I think he's the kind of guy you've got to keep interested. You have to, even though he says that for him it's all about wins, and I actually believe him. Dude is so competitive. However, I do think that every once in a while you got to remind him, hey, you are important to us. You are a part of winning, and we are going to throw you the ball. Don't worry, we haven't forgotten that you are really, really good at what you do.
Right, just give him little pieces at a time just to keep him coming. And then we'll move in. Oh, one more thing in the good. Callaway and Perriman caught everything thrown their way.
These guys, that was the knock on Perriman. He's been very good for us. He's only getting a catch or 2 each game, but they seem to be well-placed, plays in terms of when we need them. He's doing a really nice job. I really like his size. I like the fact that he hasn't been any kind of bad influence in the locker room. You're not hearing anything about him. And I think that's a really good thing for a wide receiver, especially with such a great pedigree like he has. Former first-round pick, son of an all-pro. You don't hear much. And I think maybe we found, even if it's just a 4th wide receiver for our team, not bad. And he could have some upside. Callaway, this guy's breaking out. I like what I heard this week. I can't remember who said it. It might have been Baker. Do you realize some guys spend an entire career not going for a 70-yard play? Callaway had 2 70-yard plays out of 3 plays in one series. Now, one of them was called back on a holding call, and the other one ended with a fumble at the 1-yard line.
Yeah, that was Baker who said that.
But still, wow. Think about that. This guy, he is legit, and he's going to be very good. He's extremely young. Keep in mind, he hadn't played football for a year. He's just getting better and better. I'm loving it. Just loving it. Let's move on to the bad.
Well, we didn't have very much of a running game. Chubb only had 9 attempts for 31 yards. I mean, you've got this star running back who's definitely going to improve more to be a all-star. But right now, not using him, especially when the passing game for us wasn't working too well in that game, I think we could have used him a lot more. Because when he did rush, it was good.
Agreed. And sometimes the game dictates what you can and can't do. We were behind. We needed to throw. Obviously, the yards were coming to Baker in the second half through the air. But you hate seeing when that happens, especially when you've got a weapon like Chubb. Now, granted, he's catching the ball well. He did have some catches again. Just want to make sure he's involved going forward. Same thing here with Duke Johnson. This is 2 weeks in a row. We're not seeing Duke the way we did in Freddie Kitchens' first 2 games. Where is he? What's going on? Especially in a game where you are behind. You are throwing the ball. Where's Duke? He's a weapon. You got to be using this guy. And, of course, a little bit of a lack of swagger on the Browns' part, especially in the first half. People on the sidelines said that they did have the swagger, but I don't know. My eyes were telling me in the first half, we looked a little bit flat. Sluggish, yeah. So I put that in the bad. Was there any ugly?
Yeah, so the turnovers, those are never good. Especially the unforced ones, though. The 3 interceptions that Baker had, those weren't really needed. But, rookie's going to have a rookie game eventually.
I say it again and again, but veterans are going to have those games too. Drew Brees against Dallas last Thursday night. Guy had 100 and some yards passing. Drew Brees, the best there ever was at yardage. They have games like that, and sometimes you can't stop it. Texans are legit. Kudos to the Texans. They are a well-rounded team. Offense, defense, special teams, it's all working for them. 5 field goals without a miss, pretty impressive. Let's move on to our heroes of the week. Who do you have?
I've got the defense because we only held the Texans to 1 touchdown.
Dilly.
And I'm going to go with Callaway. It seems strange because he did have that fumble, but I just think he is really
getting it.
He's getting it.
Yeah, and the effort it takes to have 2 70-yard plays in a row.
Oh my gosh, he must have been so gassed at the end of that second long one. It's no surprise that he fumbled the ball. When you realize your muscles just, after you sprint that far, they do. They get tired. So to Callaway, you are going to come around.
Dilly.
And to our GOATs, I'll get us started with the GOATs. I'm going to throw David Njoku out there, the Chief, for his penalties and poor routes. They were drive killers. I didn't know this during the game, but apparently this came out after the game, that Baker kind of let into Njoku on the sidelines for some of his knuckleheaded play. And I think Njoku is the type who's actually going to take that to heart when it comes from Baker. Njoku, to me, when you hear him in interviews and when you see him on the sideline, keep in mind that he's only 22. He seems like a guy who's just having a good time. And I don't know if he really gets this yet. And I don't know if he ever will. But with leaders like Baker, it gives him a chance of getting it. And I'm hoping that he will. So we'll see how he responds, especially this week. It's going to tell us a lot about who he is, but he is my GOAT.
My GOAT of the week is Baker Mayfield, but only because he had the 3 interceptions.
He's going to give you a private tour of the pit of misery.
I'm sorry, what? Pit of misery, dilly.
Did not mean to have Noah joining us on the show there for a second. That was no diss to Baker. He has not whined about anything. Kudos to Baker. Yes, I agree with the GOAT comment there, Joey. But after the game, he does what good leaders do. He owned it. No excuses. It was on him. I love that. Speaking of Baker and Chubb, I want to go over these statistics again now that we are 3/4 of the way through the season. I continue to be amazed by this. Mayfield, right now, is throwing at a 63.3% completion rate. He's got 2,639 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. That projects out to 63%. I think it's going to end up being closer to 64, 65 by the time this is all done if he continues what he's doing. 3,750 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. As a rookie, those are phenomenal numbers. Now, if he had played a full season, what do we project? Again, in the mid-60s percentage completions, 4,444 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 17 INTs. Just to give some perspective into terms of where that ranks, Peyton Manning did not throw for that many yards as a rookie. He did not throw that many touchdowns as a rookie. He threw 26 touchdowns and 28 interceptions as a rookie, Peyton Manning. Look at those numbers compared to Peyton Manning. Look at them compared to Andrew Luck, who this is the best rookie year that I could find. 4,374 yards, 23 touchdowns, 18 INTs. Again, compare that to a full season of Baker Mayfield. Mayfield has more yards, more touchdowns, less interceptions than Andrew Luck as a rookie, who, by the way, went to the Pro Bowl his rookie season.
Yeah, and you have to keep in mind that so far this season, 3 of those 10 interceptions were just from this game. And we know that I think in these last few games that we have, that's not happening again.
Not likely, unless it happens against the Broncos. But good news about the Broncos, they are missing their top corner. And I don't know if that's just this week or if that's, going to the end of the year. I sure hope it's to the end of the year. We need that. Let's move on to Nick Chubb. Chubb right now has 131 carries for 694 yards. That's a 5.3 yard per carry average. 7 touchdowns on the ground. He's got 12 receptions, 133 yards receiving, and 2 touchdowns through the air. That projects out to 175 carries for 925 yards and 9 touchdowns, 16 receptions for 177 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's really great production. But here's the thing. Keep in mind, he was not our main back for, it was like through the first 4 games. He's only really played for the last 8. Right. And even 6. I think it was 6 games he's played as a starter. If you calculate the numbers just from his 6 starting games, I'm not even counting that game where he had the 2 long touchdown runs. Okay? I took those out of the equation.
Okay.
If he had played the whole season, just using the last 6 games as our statistics, he would have 307 carries, 1,389 yards. That's 4.5 per carry for 13 touchdowns. He would have 32 receptions for 355 yards and 5 touchdowns. Dude is almost putting out 2,000 yards of offense for us and almost 20 touchdowns. That's what the clip is at for him. He's a stud. Now, we talk about Kareem Hunt and what happened with him this past week, getting kicked out of the league, essentially. I'm sure he'll be back. He's incredibly young. Someone will take a chance on him. They'll take a chance at getting bad news for about 2 weeks, and then people will forget all about it. And as soon as he does well, and as soon as he does some public service stuff, they will forget all about it. He'll be a turnaround story. Actually, that's the best case scenario, I hope, for this guy. Otherwise, his career is ruined, and it's really his own fault. You don't do that, Right. But, I want to say, for anybody who's thinking that, gosh, the Browns, you could use as much talent as you can get. I don't need Kareem Hunt. I don't want that on my team. And not only that, I've got Duke and I've got Chubb. What do I need Kareem Hunt for? Unless I'm bringing him in to trade him. That's it.
I mean, if you're going to trade him, and if you need to maybe trade one of our running backs, for him, then I say we do trade Duke. And we involve him in the trade. Because if we're not using him anyway, what's the point in having Duke? I mean, we haven't used him the past 2 weeks in a row, and I'm sure that we'd use Hunt more than we use Duke.
Well, there's a lot to be seen yet, especially regarding how the next coach will use our personnel. Speaking of our next coach, we have to go through our head coach tracker this week. We're going to go through the current retired head coaches first. I have moved Mike McCarthy up to number 1 on the list, Bruce Arians number 2, and John Harbaugh number 3. McCarthy rises because he's available, and because we're hearing more now that he's available. We're hearing a little bit more to the story, that maybe it's not all McCarthy. There's been some positive things written about McCarthy and positive things said about him by former players this week, and some negative things said about Aaron Rodgers. So McCarthy's, to me, he's shining a little bit more. Certainly, I think that helps the Browns, who would probably like to snag this guy. I wouldn't be surprised. Bruce Arians, he was asked if he'd be interested in the Green Bay job. He said not at all. The only job he wants is the Cleveland job. That's pretty awesome.
I like that.
But the fact that he's out there selling himself to the Browns is probably an indication, and I heard this on the radio today, it's probably an indication that the Browns have not reached out to him. Otherwise, why is he trying so hard publicly to get the message out there that he wants to coach the Browns? You follow me? I think it's an interesting theory. I'm not sure that the Browns have reached out. Plus, if they had, don't you think we would have heard? These things don't stay all nice and tidy, although John Dorsey...
He's tricky.
He is.
No one really expected, well, at least us, we didn't expect him to pick Baker number 1 in the draft. I mean, you never know who he could pick out of all these coaches.
That's true. And Harbaugh, 3. Hey, Ravens have won 3 in a row. I'm not sure.
With Billy Dat.
With Billy Dat at the helm. And I am not sure that he's going anywhere. So, and I don't know if he's coming here anyway. My gut's just not telling me that. Hot NFL assistants, I've still got Dave Taub at the top. Josh McDaniels has risen a couple spots. Look, this is a great situation. Baker Mayfield is fantastic. We've got everything. Offense, defense, we're set up for the draft. I could just see maybe McDaniels is ready to make a move like this. We'll see. Again, I'm not sure about him because I could not see him and Dorsey working well together. But I can see him and Mayfield working well together. Third would be John DeFilippo, who just bumps down one spot. You know, Vikings are having a bit of a hard time. And I don't know. How is that possible? You got better by getting Kirk Cousins instead of Case Keenum, and your team is not better.
No, that's definitely not a good sign.
So I don't know what's going on there. Dan Campbell, tight ends coach for the Saints, he moves down one. Again, he may end up off that list soon, but we'll see. College innovators, Matt Campbell, I'll tell you what, Iowa State wins again. They're playing in a December 28th bowl game, and they're going to be going up against, I can't remember what team it is, but it's a ranked team, ranked in between 10 and 15. So Iowa State playing a ranked team. Iowa State's ranked. It'll be a good one. We'll see how this guy does. I still think he's probably a guy to watch. Lincoln Riley, John Dorsey has been in person at the last 2 Oklahoma games. Why?
Well, he obviously, either
Marquise
he's
Brown is
scouting
there.
for players.
Yeah, they've got players. They're loaded. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why Lincoln Riley would really want to leave his job, but
I don't either. Except for Baker and a chance to do something really special here. But
we don't want that, so.
We'll see. I don't know what, if I was Lincoln Riley, I would not do it. He's got one of the best jobs in all of football. I wouldn't leave. That's just me. And then there's our interim head coach, Greg Williams, who, boy, he would be moving up our overall top 5 list if we had won last week. But we did not. So let's take a look at what that overall top 5 is now. I've got Taub at the top. Interesting idea I heard was Taub as your head coach and Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, would become our offensive coordinator. Now you ask, how could he make a lateral move like that if he's already the offensive coordinator? Don't you have to be promoted? Well, all you'd have to do is make him offensive coordinator / assistant head coach. And that's just a title, but it's a quote-unquote promotion.
Right.
And Bieniemy would actually be able to call his own plays, whereas I think right now Andy Reid calls the plays. So Bieniemy coordinates the offense. Reid is still the one calling those plays. That'd be interesting. I'm not sure if I believe Bieniemy is any good, but he's certainly learned from one of the best, and Andy Reid continues to produce good coach after good coach. So, number 2, Mike McCarthy, first appearance in the top 5 here, but obviously with him being fired and some of the good news we're hearing about him and his character, nobody knows this guy better than the Browns front office. They know him personally, deeply. There's probably not a whole lot they need to ask him, except maybe, how do you think you can work with Baker? How do you think you can use some of his college and some of the concepts that are coming out of colleges now? How can you use those, incorporate them into your offense? Are you willing to do that? If he is, I'm pretty sure he's going to be the man. If not, if they even sense that he's, too proud to do that, that might cost him the opportunity. Otherwise, I think this is his job. Third would be Bruce Arians. We love Arians.
Yeah, we do.
I don't know that the Browns do. I think Matt Campbell is right on his heels on this list. I could see him actually being third. McDaniel's fifth. It's his first appearance in the top 5. And Greg Williams is now honorable mention in the 6th spot. Look, he beats the Panthers this week, and he probably moves up past McDaniels. If he continues winning, he probably moves up a notch just about every week and gives himself a shot to win this thing. We'll see how it goes. Any comments on that before we move on to our previews of the week?
No, I don't think so. Just one more thing that I think we missed in the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think the uniform choice was very good. I think we're finally getting that the orange pants are good, and I do believe that we will wear them again this week.
Good call. Good call. I'm with you 100%, unless, of course, we decide to mix it up a little bit and go with a brown on white or a brown on brown.
I'm fine with that as well.
You know, I wouldn't be too surprised to see something like that happen, but I'm hoping for brown on orange. I like the feel, and I like the look. Let's see what happens. All right, heading into this week's games. Trifecta picks from last week. I was 1-2, bringing my record to 23-14.
I was 2-1, bringing my record to 21-16.
And Joey is catching up slowly but surely. My sure thing this week, I am taking the Chargers over the Bengals. That is a no-brainer. The Bengals are without Andy Dalton. They are without A.J. Green, out for the season. It's in Los Angeles. So I think the San Diego Chargers playing in Los Angeles will probably crush the Bengals. Joey Bosa is going to have a field day. Who is your sure thing?
I've got the Steelers over the Raiders. Also a no-brainer. I mean, the Steelers are still, looking for that number 1 seed if they can get it. And I think this is a very easy game for them to win.
And I think the Steelers are going to want to win these games badly because I'm not sure about the number 1 seed for them anymore. I think they need to be more worried about the Ravens winning the division. The Steelers need to make sure that doesn't happen. And if they keep winning, that won't be an issue.
Right.
My underdog this week, I'm taking the Giants over the Redskins. Redskins are on their 90th quarterback, and I think the Giants are playing just well enough that they can win this game. Who do you have as your underdog?
I've got the Vikings over the Seahawks. This is definitely a stretch, and I know it's not going so well in Minnesota, but I do think that this is a winnable game for the Vikings.
Maybe. The Seahawks remind me a lot of the Texans right now. They are just about as hot as any team in the league. They have been blowing through people. This is in Seattle. It will be a very difficult game. But if there's anybody that can do this, the Vikings certainly have the talent, offensively, defensively, to get it done, and they're well coached. That's going to be a very good game. I'm looking forward to that one. And that brings us to the Browns game. Browns against the Panthers at the stadium in Cleveland, and our offense up against their defense. I'm liking our chances.
Yeah, I'm going to take our offense. I think that we're going to have that swag back since we'll be in Cleveland. And their defense doesn't really scare me.
No, not at all. There's really, they have Norman at corner. They've got Kuechly.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot else.
Mm-mm.
You're not hearing much. They're very average, right? Very average. It's probably much the way they're looking at us. I just feel like we're clicking, and I expect us to do really, really well in this game. Our defense against their offense, I do see some problems.
I think I'm going to take our defense, even though we're without Ward. Cam Newton, he's been hurting. His arms, his shoulders, he might not even play. And I think, if he does play, we will have plenty of turnovers. And if he doesn't, then they'll have some no-name backup. And probably have plenty of turnovers there, too.
Their offense is also without Greg Olsen, Cam Newton's go-to guy in the passing game. Of course, that is before Christian McCaffrey became his go-to guy in the passing game. That is the one guy that really puts the fear of God in me this week is Christian McCaffrey. He's my favorite college football player of all time. And I had him on my fantasy team last year because I thought he was going to be what he is this year, even as a rookie. He is a star. He's phenomenal. He is so much fun to watch. He can take it to the house on any play, and he is super productive with every touch he gets. I'm worried because we struggle against running backs. Whether they're running or catching, we struggle, and he does both really well. If I'm Cam and I can't throw far, I'm using a lot of McCaffrey.
But consider this. If the Panthers do have their no-name backup playing, I think that the Browns defense can focus more on the run.
There's no question. If Heineken guy, Heineken, whatever his name is, I can't even. Their backup is such a no-name that all I can think of when I think of him is Heineken beer, which is not a bad thing to think of, but he is not going to do well if he's playing. And then, yeah, I take our defense. Otherwise, well, we get Terrence Money Mitchell back, even though we don't have Ward, or at least I don't think we'll have Ward. Who knows? By week's end, we may. That's a tough one. I may give just a slight edge to our defense. If we can bottle up McCaffrey, we can win this game. There's nothing else that scares me. DJ Moore is a very good young receiver. He's going to be superb in a couple years. But I think we can stop McCaffrey and we can win this game. Special teams, whatever.
Well, you say whatever. But special teams is the reason that the Texans won last week.
That's true. This week, whatever. All right. So, with that in mind, our Browns picks of the week. I'll go first this week. You've been following, or you've been going first lately on the Browns pick. I will take the Cleveland Browns over the Carolina Panthers. I think we have the edge in this game. We've got the fans. We have a weather advantage. The Panthers aren't going to like the cold when they come up here. I guarantee you that. And I don't know. This team's playing with spirit and spunk. And, we didn't talk about this. I'll let you make your pick, and then we can talk about the ramifications of winning this game, what it means potentially for the playoffs. Go ahead and make your pick.
I am also taking the Browns because I definitely think that they're going to win, and I'm probably going to go 3-0 this week, so that's good.
Okay, absolutely confident. It's a polite way of saying that. Okay, if the Browns win this week, they follow that up with Denver at Denver, Cincinnati at home, and Baltimore at Baltimore. I think we can win out. I definitely think we can win against Carolina. I definitely think we can beat the Bengals. The Broncos in Denver will be really tough. The Steelers couldn't even beat them. They almost did, and they should have, but they didn't. And then the Ravens in Baltimore.
I think that's winnable.
It's winnable. These are all winnable. That's what's beautiful about this. They're winnable, but that's going to be very tough, especially with the playoffs on the line, at least for the Ravens. If we win out, I have a really good feeling that game against the Ravens is going to be winner take all, goes to the playoffs as the last wild card. And here's why. The Ravens sit atop the wild card standings for the last spot in the AFC, the 6th seed. They're 7-5. There's a cluster of teams, about 4 or 5 teams that are 6-6. That includes the Broncos, who we play. It includes the Titans, who play tomorrow night against the Jags, who we know of all the teams. The Colts are another one. I said the Broncos, the Colts, the Titans.
Jaguars.
The Jags are not a 6-win team right now. The Dolphins. The Dolphins are a 6-win team right now. The Jags, I think they have 7 losses. I think they're 5-7.
Okay.
I could be wrong. So they could win out. If they won, is that right? 5-7? 12 games? Yeah, 5-7. If they won out, they'd be 9-7. They'd have a chance. I think it's extremely unlikely that they do that. Their schedule's tough. This is the beauty of it. The Browns' schedule is probably the second easiest of all of these teams from here to the end of the year. The Texans have the easiest schedule. We need the Jags to beat, not the Texans, the Titans. The Titans have the easiest schedule from here on out, and we need the Jags to beat them tomorrow night, Thursday Night Football. It's one reason we're recording tonight instead of tomorrow or the next day. We didn't have time tomorrow. This is big. And the Jags, I think, are capable of winning that game. I think the Titans are playing good enough football right now that they can beat a pretty bad Jags team. But the Jags surprised this week, and they beat the Colts, who had been pretty hot. You called that. Go Jags. And if the Titans and all these other 6-6 teams, who, by the way, have really hard schedules. I mean, they're playing teams like the Chargers and the Chiefs and the Steelers and the Patriots. All these teams are playing teams like that. You can't win those games. The Ravens, for instance, they play the Chiefs this week. Maybe they'll give the Chiefs a game, but it's at Kansas City. There's no way the Chiefs are losing to the Ravens this week. I don't see that happening at all. If the Ravens win, forget it. This whole conversation, forget it. Ravens beat the Chiefs, Ravens are going to the playoffs. Okay? Because they can certainly steal one more game out of the rest, or 2 more games. But their schedules are so hard, and the Browns are so easy. If we finish 8-7-1, I'm telling you right here, right now, with 4 games to go, Cleveland Browns make the playoffs. If we win the last 4. That's how good the situation looks. I know it's crazy. What do you think?
Well, basically, I looked at the same website that you did. Basically, this works because we would be half a win more than everyone else who goes 8-8, automatically giving us the upper hand.
That's right. All their schedules set up so that all of them, basically, their schedules look like they're going to end up 8-8. If you just look at the games they've got left and be generous and say, I think they'll win this one, I think they'll lose this one, win this one. Everybody finishes 8-8. The Browns play the Ravens. We will be 7-1, and the Ravens will be 8-7. And the winner will go to the playoffs. That's what we're talking about in the last week of the season. I think it can happen. It's so exciting, but it starts tomorrow night. Go Jags, beat the Titans. Now, it's not over if the Jags don't beat the Titans. There's still 3 games to play. Right. The Titans will lose one of them for sure. I can't remember who it is. Maybe the Patriots or somebody that they play that's going to whoop them. But we need another loss for the Titans. It would be good to just get it out of the way this week.
Yeah, one more thing to consider. If the Browns do finish 8-7-1, that would be very close to our prediction earlier, or at least my prediction before the beginning of the season, that we would win about 9 games. So, and I do think if we do win 8 games, I think Greg Williams is keeping his job, because that almost guarantees us a spot in the playoffs. And, well, I mean, from going 0-16 to 8-7-1.
And for him,
big.
6-2. That's 6-2 for him. It would be really hard to turn him away. Very hard. Possible, though. The Titans did it last year to a coach who not only got them to the playoffs, but won a playoff game with them, and they fired their coach. So, we think of a situation like that, and we think, how could you ever do that? I mean, we've been thirsting so much for the playoffs. You give us anybody who takes us there, you better keep them. Mm-hmm. We'll see. We will see. All right, well, we want to thank all our subscribers for listening. We love talking about the Browns. We hope you feel like you're part of the conversation. You can be part of the conversation by tweeting at us at Mark C. Moorhead.
Also, if you enjoy the podcast, please consider leaving us a short review on iTunes. Those reviews are essential to the growth of our show and ensure that we will continue to provide you and many others with excellent content on a regular basis. Until next time, remember, there's no more waiting until next year. Next year is now. Go Browns.